Our body has actually its own ingenious protection against all sorts of diseases. The immune system, so why not use this protection to fight cancer? That's exactly the idea behind immunotherapies. But there isn't just one immunotherapy, but many different ones that work in different ways. Keeping track of it all isn't always that easy. That's why in this video we'll take a closer look at what the term immunotherapy actually means, which immunotherapies exist, and of course the most important thing for you, what role they play in treating cancer in children and adolescents. So let's start with the question of what is actually meant by immunotherapy. It doesn't refer to one specific treatment, but is a collective term for various forms of therapy that all have one thing in common. They help the body's own immune system to become active, yes, so that it can effectively take action against cancer cells. Maybe you've also wondered, why can't our body actually get rid of cancer cells on its own? Basically, that's possible, and sometimes our immune system actually eliminates its own faulty cells without us even noticing, because in our body, millions, yes, of cells are constantly dividing, or going through certain maturation processes, and mistakes can happen during that. Sometimes this results in cells that could multiply uncontrollably, potentially becoming cancer cells. Usually that's not a problem because our immune system has a built-in danger scanner. Yes, it usually recognizes when a cell or when cells are somehow suspicious and destroys them before they can cause major damage. But unfortunately, cancer cells also have clever tricks to be left alone by the immune system. For example, by changing in such a way that they're no longer recognized as cancer cells. Yes, or they send out signals that virtually lull the immune system and prevent it from attacking. This allows the cancer cells to continue spreading unnoticed and grow into tumors. And this is exactly where immunotherapies come in. They're intended to make the immune system recognize the cancer cells as dangerous and then eliminate them. With the great advantage that the cancer cells are targeted very specifically and healthy cells are spared as much as possible. So the principle should be fairly clear by now. Immunotherapies use the body's defense system to fight cancer. And there are different forms of immunotherapies that do this in different ways. So far, so good. But which of these already play a role in pediatric oncology? First of all, it must be said that immunotherapies are still used limitedly here, and mostly only in special cases. However, there are two forms that have already proven to be particularly effective, and are already being used successfully for certain cancers in childhood and adolescence. On one hand, CAR T-cell therapy, and on the other, certain antibody therapies. We'll introduce both of these to you in more detail in the next videos. There are also immunotherapies already used in adults, but which still need further study in children. These include so-called checkpoint inhibitors and tumor vaccinations. These are currently still being tested largely in clinical trials, and therefore so far they're only an option for a very few patients. But why is it actually the case that fewer immunotherapies are available for children than for adults? Well, childhood tumors differ from adult tumors. Because unlike some tumors in adulthood, they often contain only very few immune cells. But those are exactly what's crucial for immunotherapies to be able to work at all. You can imagine it like this. Certain immunotherapies, especially so-called checkpoint inhibitors, need allies on site, and these are namely the immune cells that they can activate to attack the tumor. If these allies are missing or only present in very small numbers, the therapy simply has a much harder time. However, immunotherapies for cancer are evolving very rapidly, and research into them is also continuing to make progress. An important focus here is the question of how immunotherapies can be meaningfully combined with other cancer treatments. Yes, for example, with chemotherapy, with radiation therapy, with so-called targeted drugs, or even with other immunotherapies. Because it often turns out that a combination of several therapies can be particularly effective. And whether an immunotherapy is an option for you is something your treating physicians at the ward will discuss with you. That's because they can usually tell at a fairly early stage. And if you'd like to find out right now how CAR T-cell therapy or antibody therapy works in children with cancer, then just click on the corresponding videos here on the page. See you then.